Good morning.
Morning, how are you?
I'm drinking my coffee.
Oh, okay.
How are you?
All right. Another beautiful day in paradise.
Yep.
Just trying to see if there's anything I'm missing here. I think we're gonna have a full quorum today.
Oh, good.
The only person who I didn't hear from when I made the round of phone calls yesterday was Thayer Hale, but I think she had, let's see, I think she had accepted. No, she didn't. So she may or may not be in the, but we've got a quorum basically.
Okay.
So
Well, we don't really have any votes.
no, we don't need to vote on anything other than minutes or anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have like 5 Zoom meetings today. Feels like a year ago.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not coming in till like after lunch, right?
No, I've got a, well, let me see my schedule. Wait a minute. I've got interfaith council at noon, which I thought I'd try to do from the office.
Okay.
But I have cabinet at 11 and who knows how long that goes.
Right.
So if I'm not there when you leave for lunch, just put the sign out.
Okay.
Because I think I have another one at 2. Yep. And then I have the acupuncture at 4. It's a hopping day.
The what?
Acupuncture at 4.
Oh, that, okay. Yeah, I got the link to Mark Voight's memorial.
Oh,
at
really?
6. I decided to sign up for that, see what that's gonna be like.
When is that?
6 o'clock today.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think I'm at dinner, but what are they doing? Do you know? It's a Zoom?
It's a Zoom. It's, oh gosh, you even have an order of service.
Wow.
Oh no, okay. Prelude is a solo violin on something from Bach. A welcome from a Paul Holbrook, who was a cousin of Lucretia. Then somebody's going to read a poem. Then, oh, this is interesting. They're going to read another poem by Jeff, Mark's brother. Okay. I didn't realize, I thought this was just going to be like, I didn't realize this was, oh, this is what, you know, what was intriguing is they're having this at the Mariah Mitchell house.
Oh, yeah, I know, because that's where he first landed on Nantucket. He did some Preservation Institute project there.
Okay.
That was in the obituary.
Okay. Yeah, because there any donations would be made towards the Preservation Institute. Yep, Mark first came to Nantucket to document the Mariah Mitchell House as part of the Preservation Institute. Throughout his career, he worked to preserve unique historic architecture in Nantucket. So the whole HDC administration thing was perfect for him.
Yeah.
But then going to facilities at the DPW is kind of like a step backward.
Yeah, there's some story there.
Yeah, I'm sure. Oh, she's got a nice photo of Brant Point. Hi, Mary.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Hi.
Janet, do you need a copy of the remote script? Oh, got it. Okay. This
She's
one.
on.
Yes.
She's on it.
Yep. Okay, so you guys want to see a picture? I guess we were tagged in this. Instagram, somebody from Eat Nantucket put up this picture of these cherry trees.
Those are gorgeous.
Yeah. And they
You should
tagged
get a
our,
picture of those for our new website.
Yeah, make it a Zoom background for spring.
right.
I've got one tree behind me from the Whaling Museum.
Hi, Rob.
Rob.
Hi, Rob.
Morning, everybody.
Hi, Noah.
Hey, Dave, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Hi, Sharon.
Good morning.
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 Josh.
Good morning, everybody.
Hi, Liz.
Morning, Liz.
Anybody try to go to the hospital thrift shop when it opened yesterday?
Right
Um,
by the line.
when I went by, coming into work about a little before 8 o'clock, there were already 4 people in line.
I figured maybe later in the week is the time to refresh my sartorial style. 16 and a half, 33 shirt, wider waist.
Good morning, everyone.
Karen.
Morning, Karen.
Josh, I think that's going to be it. I'm not sure about Bear, so, but I think everybody else who's here is here.
Okay, perfect. David, did you send me the agenda or did Janet?
David did.
I did.
Okay, sorry, just,
It was in the invite, I think,
oh,
the
perfect.
Zoom invite.
Amongst many other things I keep sending.
All right, let's call to order the meeting of the Visitor Services Advisory Committee. we have to approve the minutes from April's meeting. Could I get a motion to approve those minutes?
You want me to read the script?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I'm so bad about the script, yeah.
All right, here we go. As a preliminary matter, this is Janet Schulte, Director of Culture and Tourism. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mary Malaves,
Here.
Peter Morrison,
Here.
Sharon Quigley,
Here.
Liz Holland,
Here.
Karen McCumber,
Here,
Josh Gray,
Here,
and staff, David Sharp,
Here.
Janet Schulte here, and anticipated speakers on the agenda, Rob Ranning
Here.
and Noah Carberg. Thanks. This open meeting of the Visitor Services Advisory Committee is being conducted remotely consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, enough already, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19. We have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor order suspends the requirements of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical locations. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless participation is required by law. For this meeting of the Visitor Services Advisory Committee is convening by video conference via Zoom as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all members are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be recorded by the materials. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. And then finally, if members wish to engage in conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. All right, we can go back to the agenda, Josh.
all right. Let's approve the April 13th minutes. Motion to approve April 2021 meeting of the Visitor Services Advisory Committee.
so moved.
So moved. All right. Next, oops. Sorry. Next we have.
The travel predictions for summer 2021.
Yeah, sorry, I had the agenda here. Yes, Rob and Noah, thank you for joining us today. I think, yeah, we're just interested. We're hearing from a lot of business owners and people that, share their time with us here that it's looking like it's headed towards a pretty busy season. And, we're hearing anecdotally that the boats are filled and the reservations are gone and things like that. So I guess if each of you could just, start by giving us a kind of your outlook for summer 2021 on Nantucket.
I think Noah has a slideshow.
Oh, perfect. Awesome.
Great. Noah Carberg, Nantucket Memorial Airport. Thank you for the invite today to present. If it's all right with you, Mr. Chair, I'll share my screen.
Sure.
Okay, everyone should be seeing my PowerPoint now, correct?
Correct.
Oh, PDF actually. Okay, I believe this is also in the calendar invite. The message I wanted to get across first by looking backwards to our change from 2019 for our secure commercial and plane passengers is that commercial travel remained intact during the pandemic. There was a period where our industry didn't know if that was even going to happen. So what I've shown here, the blue bars coming down from the top of the screen, read on the right axis. That's the percent change in secure and plane passengers from 2019. So as you can see, starting with the pandemic, we had a 90 to 80% daily drop in secure and plane passengers. But what do you see with the black line, which reads on the left axis with our securely screened departing passengers, is that the trends in our transportation remained intact. Our summer peaks and our weekend peaks, you know, were there. People still travel, just, you know, at a third of what we were accustomed to. And this was the major drive with airlines. They wanted to keep pilots and crew on staff. They wanted to keep some aircraft flying. They wanted to keep their system intact in hope of a recovery. And now what we're seeing is that recovery for 2021. And Nantucket happens to be in one of the markets that is going to see that recovery happen a lot quicker than areas that rely on business travel or international travel. It's the high yield leisure destinations that are going to come roaring back the soonest. So compared to 2019, Nantucket has seen probably the largest increase in the summer seasonal air service since we've tracked these statistics in detail. Compared to 2019, we're going to see 4 new destinations. We'll see Chicago O'Hare, Washington Dulles, Hanscom Field at Bedford, and Lancaster, Pennsylvania, with new direct nonstop service. The ORD flight is highlighted. Not only is that's a stage length of 902 miles, which is double anything Nantucket has ever seen before as far as a stage length, but we also have 2 airlines flying that route. You know, both American and United added that route into this season. We have a new entrant this way. Elite Airways will be flying CRJs back and forth between Westchester County and White Plains. We've had expansion of a number of our existing routes. JetBlue has added Newark, EWR. American has added a second Charlotte section, CLT, on Saturdays. Elite, of course, added White Plains. JetBlue and Delta increased their JFK and LaGuardia service, respectively. And American took Philadelphia from once a week to daily throughout the season. So these are major increases in frequency. The other trend that continues, one we've seen for a while, is an upgauging of the existing fleet. So the fleet keeps getting bigger. For this year, Delta's weekend LaGuardia route, they switched out from a 50-seat jet to the 76-seat Embraer E175. And the CRJ 550 is probably the most interesting regional jet out there. It's the CRJ 700 airframe that United has ripped 25 seats out of to offer a premium product with a large first class section, most legroom in class, carry-on capacity, a walk-up bar on the aircraft. So it's an aircraft that they put into sort of a premium market, and I haven't flown on it, but it's supposed to be a marked improvement from anyone who's flown on the old Dash 8 or even on the E145. So when I originally made this presentation, I had 22 peak daily departures, but announcements and changes keep coming through the schedule. So we're up to 23 peak daily departures of large air carrier aircraft. I think that was 19 in 2019. And what this all means is my last bullet point, is that it's a 30%, now probably about 32 or 33% increase in available seats coming to Nantucket. I don't have the reservation data from the airlines. I don't know how many of these seats are full. But I've reached out to the station managers informally, and they say loads are looking good. There will be people on these seats. The average Nantucket load factor is about 65 to 75%. So 65 to 75% of these seats are full with passengers on average. So that's the commercial sector. I think it's going to be a real increase. I don't think we're just going to be seeing the aircraft. I think they're going to be full of passengers. On the private side, we're dealing with much lower volumes of passengers, but their spending habits and purchasing power is something we track for the community. And we're looking at this in terms of what happened, pre-COVID and during COVID. And I have a series of 3 graphs that I wanted to walk you through. So in each of these graphs, the black line is non-pandemic. So the sum of years from 2014, the average of years from 2014 through 2019. And then the pandemic years from March 2020 through current, and it's current through April. That's why I have 2 samples and was able to add an error bar for April. And there are 4 things on this graph that I wanted to show. So again, this is general aviation aircraft, the ones that arrive on our Southwest ramp. Everything from, Joe and Mary homeowner own and fly their own small Cessna to someone who flies the highest end, largest corporate aircraft. For the circle, in March, we had a brief uptick, and we put out a little press release on this. There were Washington Post articles about the wealthy virus emigres fleeing to Nantucket and the Hamptons. There was a grain of truth to that. We had, I think it was something like 34 extra operations that we figured represented a certain amount of people. Certainly nothing huge, but there were some families who relocated by aircraft, and you could see it. They unloaded the aircraft. They had one for family and one for toilet paper, and got picked up and left. So we did have a few examples of that. For this first part of the curve, it was depressed travel, early pandemic. We had fewer operations coming into Nantucket. The whole market was declined. People really tended to stay home wherever they lived full time. But by the peak of our season, and this is real, it's a small increase, but it's statistically viable. Private, what you call corporate or general aviation traffic had increased over the previous year average. I think this is due to 2 items. I think commercial flights weren't available for people, so people opted for private travel simply because of lack of availability, and private travel, being able to control your travel experience, your group size, your exposure was attractive. And then what we've seen through the fall, we saw a continuation of that trend, whether that's due to travel or what I think of as the traditional breadwinner having moved the family to Nantucket and commuting, representing increased travel through the fall. So again, this is based around aircraft activity, number of aircraft arriving. The next slide, it's going to look functionally similar, but this is the number of passengers coming off of those aircraft. So we see the same item. We see a reduction in the spring for the number of passengers. We don't really see a difference in our peak passenger arrival, while the number of aircraft arriving increased. It did not lead to a commensurate increase in the number of passengers, and less of a trend going into the fall. And when you put this together and you look at the ratio of deplaning passengers to arriving aircraft, you can see that once the pandemic months hit, the number of people arriving per aircraft is less. People are opting to travel either with fewer people, or more people are opting for individual travel items. And what we've seen in the fuel sales that help support this is that it seems like there are a number of smaller, more cost-effective charters operating now. A lot of people are opting to travel cost effectively in a Cirrus or a Pilatus instead of a Citation or a Gulfstream. So when I put on the crystal ball, when I look at this data set that I've presented, and I try to forecast into 2021, there are a few things that I see with sort of different levels of veracity. For summer commercial service, there's a trend that COVID and COVID response and recovery has just emphasized, and it's one that's been occurring. And that's that passengers are arriving on regional jets from their destination. I wrote a little bit about this in the town newsletter last month, but airlines are utilizing regional jets to bypass the traditional hub and spoke market. Traditionally, passengers would go to their nearest geographical hub airport on a small regional jet or a larger turboprop and be fed into the system this way. air service now is about linking city pairs that make the most sense, not only from origin and destination, but from feeding an airline's overall service profile with one connection travel. So this trend is here to stay. The regional jets are going to stay for a while. This is where passengers are going to come from. They're going to connect through major hubs directly to Nantucket. They're going to connect less frequently through driving to Hyannis and taking an aircraft over. They're going to get on a plane in their home state airport and come to Nantucket. From a air service perspective, I don't know what this is like for the boats, but for the airport, 80% of our passengers come from beyond the major markets of Boston, New York, DC, and Philadelphia. 80% of them are, from Michigan, from Northern California, and from everywhere else in the United States. So the unknown that we have is we don't know if all of this new service is sustainable. Basically, do all of these new available seats mean passengers? And do they mean passengers for the next set of years? It's important to realize that Nantucket is attractive because it's been an underserved market from regional jets, and the hub service has been underdeveloped. But there's also a relative opportunity cost that airlines are taking advantage of. International travel is still depressed. Business travel is still depressed. Airlines have these payrolls they need to support, so they are throwing aircraft at routes that they think may be profitable. It may not necessarily be that Nantucket is going to support two Chicago O'Hare routes in perpetuity for the rest of our summers. It may be that Chicago Nantucket is the best available option for an airline right now. On the private side, here to stay, and I'm hedging my bets a little bit here. Families have definitely relocated to Nantucket, and we see the head of household commuting. I've spoken to people about this. I see it in my neighborhood. Our FBO has new friendly faces who we've seen, 2 or 3 times a week coming through the FBO. I don't know if this is going to last. I don't know if these families will relocate back to what I assume is a major business center in New York, Boston, or Philadelphia. I don't know if the head of household will keep up the commuting schedule or enable more virtual attendance, but there is a bit of a demographic shift. I don't want to overstate it. Of course, if we see 5 or 6 people 2 or 3 times a week, it's going to skew our own confirmation bias here. But again, this is bearing out through our fuel sale and other activity indicators. And then there's a transient COVID change that I've identified, and that's last year there was a major reduction of commercial travel options. That pushed people into private travel, the low end charter range. We're afraid to travel commercially. And I don't think that is going to last much past this season, much past widely available vaccinations. So I'm happy to stay and answer questions after Rob speaks, or answer any now, whatever the commission's pleasure is.
Sure. How do you want to do it, Janet? Nope, I think you're muted.
Let's hear what Rob has to say, and then see if there's a conversation between the two of them.
All right. Rob, take it away.
Okay, I too brought a slideshow, so if it's okay, I'll share my screen.
Awesome.
Great.
Let's see. Okay, so I'm Rob Ranney. I represent Nantucket on the Steamship Authority Governing Board, and here we go. So we're looking back past to the beginning of the pandemic from 2019 to 2021, and you can see for the first couple of months things are generally down, although autos are up. And the big reason for that is because we've seen during the pandemic that passengers don't like to be in confined spaces. They don't want to, there's a sort of a resistance to travel on boats. So they either all go in cars or maybe they take a flight. I'm not really sure where they go, but that we've seen a big reduction in walk-on passengers. So this is sort of looking back over the last couple of years, and you know on the far right you can see we're sort of already upticking to pre-pandemic levels, and that is you'll see as we go forward. That's a strong indicator of what the summer is going to look like. Excursion fare automobiles, those are the ones where you have to have a profile and you have to qualify as an island resident to get the excursion fare. We've seen actually a reduction in those as more, I guess you would say, off-island vehicles have really taken over the vehicle space. That's what this is, the standard fare automobile. They are certainly outpacing the island residents, and this sort of shows the trend as as the year goes on. There's obviously a huge peak in July and August, and then it sort of wanes over the winter time and then bounces right back up. So as we look forward into what the summer is going to look like, advanced vehicle reservations. So basically the peak of the season is May, middle of May to after Columbus Day, and you can see that compared to 2019, which was pre-pandemic, which was a lot of what we're basing stuff on, because the pandemic year, the travel trends were so wacky that it's this is going to be the best indication, because 2019 was one of the biggest years we've ever had. So we're already up, as you can see, for reservations across the board, even as far as September, which is probably due to a lot of wedding activity that was suppressed during the pandemic. And now we're seeing, advanced bookings for stuff like well into the fall, Columbus Day even. So that's huge. So, if we're looking at 2019 as one of our peak years of all time, 2021 is already 12.7% ahead of that. And this is, up until now. So going forward, there's probably going to be a lot more reservation activity. Here's just another graph that shows that in a different sort of format. And you can see that pretty much across the board, we are outpacing 2019. And this certainly speaks to pent-up demand for travel. It's actually kind of scary to think that 2019 was a busy year, a very busy year, and 2021 is going to be busier. Fast ferry reservations, they look weird because people don't tend to book reservations on the fast ferry the same way they do for automobiles. They don't book them as far in advance usually, but we are seeing this summer there is our heavy reservation activity for the peak months. June, July, August. Even September is down because it's so far in advance. People tend to wait to only a couple of months before they're even not even that. A lot of people will still walk up and without a reservation. So these percentages and numbers are, I would take them with a grain of salt, I guess. But still, they're, look at June, July, August. We're outpacing 2019. And this is another graph that sort of shows the same thing. And clearly, June, July, and August, we're ahead. And that doesn't count, obviously, the people that haven't booked yet, who are going to wait till a month before or even less to book, if at all. Sometimes it's just walk up. So the conclusion is that advanced vehicle reservations are up. compared to 2019. Fast ferry reservations are down, but again, I would take that with a grain of salt because people don't book those the same way they do automobiles. Driver services was not, we didn't offer driver services during the pandemic for safety reasons. That is scheduled to resume on May 19th, next week. And also concession services will be back as well. Driver services is very important to summer visitors, island residents as well, but summer visitors mostly because it allows them to show up early or show up at the reservation and leave their car, have their car driven on for them. And then they either take the fast boat or maybe fly over because they don't want to ride the boat. So the lack of driver services suppressed some travel last year, but it's going to boost what's already ahead of 2019 for going into 2021. So that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Well, some great information from both of you. Thank you so much. And I think in large part, it confirms what we've been hearing from others over the last few months, that 2021 shaping up to be a pretty busy summer. Anybody have any questions, Janet?
I think you're right. It's reflecting what we're hearing from lodging and retail and everybody else. It's going to be a crazy summer.
And we have Liz here too. I mean, I know you probably didn't prepare a slideshow, but are you seeing kind of similar things over there?
Definitely couldn't echo what Rob is saying. Definitely more advanced reservations, considering, first real year out of COVID, or we're edging our way out. Actually, weddings have picked up a real lot. And the reason why I know that is for Nantucket Island Tours, which is part of Highline as well. I think September is pretty much booked out, and there's weddings that they've already had a few. But very strong weddings this year in July and August, and that's going to bring a lot of people to the island as well. So, but I echo what Rob was saying, is that people don't make reservations in advance a lot. There's some people that plan 6 months in advance, but most people are kind of either walk up or maybe a couple weeks in advance. So I think any numbers that we have right now probably don't reflect what's actually going on, or will be happening at least.
No, the O'Hare planes that are going to be coming, is that a different class of airplane? Is it much larger? I mean, you said it's twice the distance as the other routes. Are we going to notice, kind of notice a bigger plane coming out of the sky?
No, it's the same airframe that would be flown by the operators on their existing respective routes. American will fly the Embraer 175 and United will fly the CRJ 550. Those aircraft have ranges around 1,500 nautical miles. It's not necessarily the most, at least speaking to the E175, it's longer regional jet trips aren't known for being necessarily comfortable, but it's been an inexpensive and productive platform for the airlines.
Okay. David, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I had a question. The runway, the main 624 runway is 6,300 feet. Is there any possibility you might have to extend it another 100 feet or so, or even longer?
No. So if we use Chicago O'Hare as an example, that aircraft is going to need to take off. The answer is no. Actually, the aircraft perform very well. It's getting to be at the longer end of the range, but it's within their limits.
Okay.
May I ask a question, please? Noah, as we know, last year and particularly the year before, all these flights coming in, we've got so many people departing, deplaning, and we've got almost no cabs at the airport sometimes. And honestly, that's the biggest complaint I get from my guests coming to the inn, is that they've had to stand there for an hour or more waiting to try and get an Uber or a taxi or anything like that. So I don't know if this is a town question or an airport question, but how there's got to be a way to adjust this at some point, because unfortunately an awful lot of those folks don't take the bus. I don't know what the answer is, but it could
Karen?
be. Yeah,
I've noticed an increase in Ubers around town versus last year, because last year nobody wanted to drive around in, with people they didn't know. And so I'm seeing a lot more of them sitting around town.
right. But when one of these planes, comes in, or two of them come in close at the same time, you've got how many, passengers departing, and it's even with Ubers, I get frantic calls from my guests at the airport saying, how on earth do I get to your place? Because I can't get a taxi or an Uber. The line is huge.
Yeah.
I can mention something about that.
Sure.
If the taxi, I don't even know if they still have the taxi association going on, but if the taxi people know what the schedule is. Now, when our schedule changes, I actually go down and give them schedules when they're sitting there. So if the taxis know what the schedule is coming into the airport, that may actually help. Like if somebody reaches out to them and lets them know, that may actually help your situation at the airport.
Yeah, so we provide the taxis on registration with the arrival aircraft schedule.
Okay.
Yeah, the item I've noticed is that there are, I can't speak for the taxi association. I haven't spoken with Walter, Diane, and recently. It seems that there are fewer taxis, fewer people are operating. I haven't pulled a permit count for this year. I don't know if people shelved their vehicles temporarily or permanently, but we've seen a much larger leak to it's hard because they don't report, but we believe about 20% of our ground transport occurs now via Uber. It would have been 0 from a few years ago. And Turo, not the town, the online rental company. It's very hard to track, but that is becoming a huge issue for airports. And our council has actually, I think, recently won an opinion in the state of Massachusetts to try to get some relief from airports. So we continue to work on sort of the unregulated technology app basis, but this has been a challenge, and it's been an unequal playing field. We've been trying to level it for the taxi cab companies, but we can only do so much.
Yeah, I can just imagine the 30% more travelers coming in. That's just going to be a nightmare this year.
Well, it's not 30% more travelers, it's 30% more available seats.
Sorry, I'm sorry, you're correct. Yep.
Anyone else?
Peter here.
Peter?
Needless to say, this is really catnip for a demographer. I'm just kind of blown away by what I see here because there are so many fascinating, incipient trends that you see going on here. What comes to mind is there's kind of a resemblance here of Nantucket to Reykjavik, Iceland. It's a seemingly remote place that becomes functionally integrated in a world of travelers, and suddenly you can throw what do you call them, linked city pairs together and get planes that will respond to the changing not only changing leisure patterns, but the changing home ownership patterns. And the notion that airlines are responding so quickly with these linked city pairs to places that just largely by accident happen to have a critical mass of people who are homeowners here. And then you see this fascinating evolution of the fall season. I mean, the numbers absolutely are low, but the trend is clearly reshaping something important, unless we're just witnessing airlines using underutilized aircraft and saying, it's better to put them on a route than leave them parked. And I don't know if that may be a big uncertainty, Noah, but it looks to me like Nantucket is developing a national presence as a place to go in the shoulder season in the fall, and especially attractive as a place to spend more time, either as a renter or a homeowner. And I wonder, I guess I don't have a question so much, but I just wondered whether these data are, particularly on the aircraft side, are sort of fooling us because there's just way too many aircraft sitting on the ground, so they're just throwing them at any market where they see a city pair that might break even. And I don't know if you have any insight in that, Noah.
I think personally, I think the two Chicago routes are a stretch. I think United saw what their competitor American Airlines was doing and had some extra aircraft and chose to undermine them. And that might undermine what could be a productive service if flown by only one operator. I think a lot of this is aggressive. I think a sustainable increase would have been on the order of 5 or 10% more aircraft operations or more available seats. A 30% increase. You know, I don't believe that the Island Prince hotel rooms that could keep up with a sustainable demand when you run through revenue management per seat mile and further costs and further load factors. One item that I do think that this trend continues, and Miss McCumber, if I have the name right, alluded to it. She is definitely correct. Whether this 30% increase in available seats is real or transient, the reliance on regional jets makes everything peaked. If 80% of our traveling population links to another airport to get back home, all of these airlines come to Nantucket at the same time and they leave at the same time because they need to connect to their connecting flight banks at their hubs. So even if Nantucket continues on a trend of being less busy in the winter, we're going to have stronger and stronger peaks, and we're going to be defined by how we do or don't address these peak cycles, whether it's transportation at the curb, the ground transport interface, secure hold room capacity, airfield congestion, etc.
Yeah, I guess if there's one major headline takeaway, you could say the battle for Darwinian survival in the airline industry, which is an ongoing thing, is being fought on local terrain here. If this is the way the airlines view Nantucket as the best place to put the next unoccupied aircraft, that's a good thing. And then it just gets fought out between two competitors and you end up with one. That may be the pattern to watch going forward as a long-term indicator, whether airlines that never came in in pairs and then one survived and stayed.
May I? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Rob.
I was just going to sort of echo the capacity discussion a little bit. The steamship does not have the capacity to expand our peak season the way airport service does. The number of boats that are operating, the number of slips that we have, the time that it takes to go back and forth, all is pretty much at the peak level that it could possibly be. We can't add another boat without causing some kind of operational problem that we can't fix. We can't operate all night long. We can't leave any earlier in the morning or come in any later at night. So the boat system, and I'm pretty sure Highline is at their limit as well. The boat system, as far as adding additional capacity, is where it's going to be. So the overflow is going to have to happen earlier in the season or later in the season because the peak season is full.
May I ask a question also? In the age of COVID now, should we have planes that either due to mechanical issues or weather get grounded? And we know that all the rental units and the hotels will be full. What is the plan then to deal with folks? I mean, do you set up something still at the high school or something? I'm just curious.
From the regulatory side, these passengers are the airline's responsibility. You know, in the event of an aircraft incident, we just had our triennial drill. We take steps, on that front, but, it's an airline responsibility to ferry their passengers out. And by ferry, I do mean on aircraft. That's an aviation term. Maybe put them on the ferry. They've done that. Fly in a replacement aircraft.
Okay.
Anyone else? Well, gentlemen, you've given us a lot of really great information today. Like I said, it really confirmed a lot of what we've been hearing from others.
Yeah. I have a question. Can Rob share with Janet and Dave his PowerPoint?
Yeah, I was going to ask him that later.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure. But gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. I think we're just gonna go over Janet and David's report. You're welcome to stay on with us, but we'll thank you and wish you well now, and we'll continue with the meeting. Janet, your director's report.
Yes, on the cultural side, I'm working on a new website for the cultural district that will have a more robust calendar. We're back on track with that now, and David and I are both doing some work to get that working with the company on the West Coast who's putting that together for us, and we're expecting to launch it late June, early July. And I'll be rolling it out to the cultural organizations shortly once I have something to show and tell with. So we're back on track with that. Right after this meeting, I'm going to the Sign Advisory Committee to talk about the educational panel that we're putting at Children's Beach it's part of a regional effort it's called the Blue Economy, to understand how several towns on the Cape, the South Shore and the South Coast have their economies tied to the water. So we'll be installing this panel at Children's Beach, and this is the last step in that approval process. That should be installed sometime in June as well. Still attending the Cape Cod task forces on COVID-19. Right now, they're very busy talking about whether employers can require their employees to be vaccinated. It's an interesting conversation between public health and workers' rights. The Economic Development Task Force has moved to a bi-weekly schedule. We meet tomorrow. And we'll be hearing from Karen, I think, about the grant process that she and the Martha's Vineyard Chamber are working on. Let's see. Been meeting with the local cultural council as well. They've finished their grant making process, and there'll be a press release going out shortly about that. It's recruiting new member season for this committee, and 2 members who were up for renewal are not coming back. So we've been soliciting candidates to fill those slots. And I attended the Nantucket Historical Association Marketing Committee meeting last week, where there was an interesting conversation about their merger with the Lightship Basket Museum. And I think it's good for both the Lightship Basket Museum and the NHA that this kind of support as with the acquisition is happening to save an important part of our cultural heritage by saving the Lightship Basket Museum. And they each have collections, obviously, but the NHA's is a little more historical than the basket museums, which is more contemporary. And so I think it's going to be an interesting presentation of the arts and crafts and lightship basket making when they get those exhibits set up this summer. So other than that, a lot of Zoom meetings, and we're seeing it. Well, I'll let David talk about the numbers about what's going on in the visitor center. Any questions for me?
Sounds good. David.
Okay. So for the month of April, we had 366 people come in to the office compared to last year when we were closed. And 88 phone calls, 12 of which were lodging, and about 12 mailings, all compared to last year in April where we were closed at that time. At the same time, all our digital information aid, which is our website, as Janet likes to call it, the digital information aid, which is the weekly restaurant list for the month of April, shot up to 12,899 downloads compared to last year at 4,705. And the peak was 497 on the Monday, April 19th at the start of school vacation week. And it kept up that the rest of that week. And I've got that, that chart you have with you. Also, the TNL is downloads are shooting up again, 675 compared to 246 last year. And of course, the online version of the TNL is a little different than the printed version. And the event list, people are trying to kind of figure out, what's going on. So there are 543 downloads compared to nothing last year. It's pretty much self-explanatory, night and day comparison between this year and last year. The other thing I wanted to mention is that, I just had my notes, sorry. We're going to start opening 7 days a week as of Friday, May 28th for the season here at the main office. And then starting the week of June 14th, we're going to be opening Straight Wharf, and the airport information desks will be open for the summer. That's the plan for now. And it's of course subject to change, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. No? Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And that looks to be it on the agenda. The June meeting, which is second Tuesday, right?
Yep.
Yes. Anybody you all want to hear from?
Any ideas, Peter?
I just have one concern that was sparked by whoever measured this business about, I guess, business about the stranded passengers at the peak time,
Oh, right.
and we have people who are on island and have no place to spend the night, and that's a really, really bad situation. And I realize that technically it's the airline's problem, and they may solve it eventually in time by bringing in another aircraft. But I wonder if it would make sense for us to take responsibility for at least formulating a worst case contingency plan and having at least some sense of who we could go to in a worst case situation, who is regarded as a core of ambassadors whom we can call on in an emergency. 2 or 3 people at the airport who can at least do what the airlines cannot do or are not yet prepared to do, and say, we're going to at least try to do something for you, even if they don't have much to do. You recall what happened when, I think it was 9/11 or something, when all the aircraft suddenly were grounded everywhere, and that little tiny island in Newfoundland, or community in Newfoundland, took in all the folks, and under worst case scenarios, at least they helped them. I'm not saying that we need to have a core of people doing that, but we should have a plan in place for what to do instead of doing nothing or just wringing our hands and looking like we've been stunned.
Well, it's certainly something we could bring up to the Lodging Association. I would think that'd be a great place to partner with them, a great place to start. I mean, certainly they'd be the most impacted by some sort of stranding, as far as people reaching out and things like that, looking for options. But certainly something to think about. Liz?
They usually call me, actually, first.
Yeah.
If it's, I mean,
Right.
obviously, if there's a catastrophic situation, that would be different, with
Right.
a lot of people. But usually I have a direct contact with people at the airport, and usually what they do is they give us a call and see if we've got room, and we set it up for them. So
Okay.
that's just for general issues, but
Right.
not what you're talking about, which
Yeah.
I do agree.
Mary?
What about, I have a question, Josh. What about the emergency committee for the town has always been, the group that was sort of behind the scenes was ready. I
Okay.
mean, I know I've dealt with a lot of canceled boats in my hotel days and all sorts of things. And, it was not really what you would think of as a civil defense committee, but there's an emergency preparedness committee for the town. So I would assume, I think it's still active, Janet. I don't know. It used to be very active
Yeah.
because they
Janet-
had.
It
Go
would be
ahead.
interesting to hear from that committee about plans they have in place for, catastrophic events and stuff like that. Obviously, the things we talk about all the time, we benefit from their perspective, certainly if they're active right now, and just
Yeah.
understand what they're working on and what they have in place.
During the
Was that-
midst, we send them the list of open hotels. We fax that over to
Yeah,
them.
and that's easily available on our website and
Right,
also
right, right.
Yeah.
various,
Yeah.
forms throughout the airport and, and the boats know about it.
Right.
I should say, I hate to say this, in the old days, we used to fax the list to the boats and to the police and fire, but faxing is not as prevalent as it used to be.
Right.
But, everybody, for the most part, is aware that we have a list online that has, list plus the access to, other inns and hotels that are on, the Lodging Association website.
Right.
Plus, with some of the hotels, if it's a weather-related incident where people are here and they can't leave, that usually means people can't come in either.
Exactly.
So sometimes you have empty
Yeah.
rooms from people stuck on the other side or in a city. So, it becomes a domino effect, but, I juggled it with a lot of my colleagues for years.
Right.
And it's that game, you don't know if there are people who are already on island and they're just waiting to check in at 3, or if they're really still sitting in Logan because of the fog. But I know the town used to have that committee, and I think they're still active.
And remember, we actually are losing hotel rooms because all of the summer house downtown properties were sold, but they're using them as staff housing this year.
Yeah, I know. We've lost tons of rooms over the past 25 years.
I know.
Here.
Let me just
We
make one.
went we went sending a lot of people to those properties anyway.
No, I understand, but
Peter?
Let me make one concrete suggestion. It's the airline's obligation, but we're the ones that bear the reputational risk. And a minimal step might be to simply prepare a one-pager that is handed out to the counters, every airline, and a lot of, remember, a lot of the people who are staffing those things don't know a whole lot about Nantucket, seasonal.
So
These are
we do have a QR code thing at the airport counter and the airlines. Once we get up and running this year, we'll have, we'll pass that along to the airline counters, so they'll be aware of it.
Yeah, I mean, the best outcome is to make it not only their responsibility, but to equip them to take care of it and make them the immediate ambassadors in place. And anything we can do to do that, that's just telling them 20 things to do or try to see if you can accommodate your passengers, rather than throw up your hands and say there's no place to go, because that then we suffer.
Okay. Good food for thought. All right, well, in the absence of any suggestions for a guest for next month, Janet and I can communicate about that offline and shoot an email out to you as soon as it's set up. And unless there's anything else, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Thank you all.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
We'll see you next month.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.